Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Colonel Francis X. Pushbottom, noted explorer, big game hunter, and lecturer. The film story you are about to see is the record of an amazing adventure undertaken by myself and an obscure little man named Professor Horace Wembley. Deep in the heart of the steaming jungle, a strange rumor had been picked up by traders, carried back to civilization, and eventually reached my ears. According to this rumor, a huge, fantastic beast had appeared in the jungle and was terrorizing the natives. The prospect of pitting my courage and cunning against this beast fascinated me, and I prepared to leave immediately. I would have gone alone, but since there was a financial problem involved, I invited Professor Wembley to go with me. In the first picture, you will see us leaving the last outpost of civilization. Of course, word of our expedition had spread throughout the territory, and you will see the throngs of the curious gathered at the riverbank to wish us well. And so our ordeal begins. Frankly, I must say at the beginning that I was a bit reluctant to start on such an expedition with Professor Wembley. I wasn't at all sure he was going to carry his share of the load. At last, when the river grew narrow and disappeared into a marsh, we left the canoe and, disregarding the mud, slogged through to the surrounding jungle. When finally we reached the jungle trail, my fears were realized. Professor Wembley did not seem up to the trip. He frequently had to stop and rest, and he seemed to have a great deal of trouble keeping up with me. The underbrush got thicker and higher, so I decided to climb a tree and have a look around, and perhaps catch a glimpse of our monster. And sure enough, there in a little clearing in the jungle, I saw a huge animal. Could this be the legendary monster we were seeking? My pulse quickened with the thrill of the hunt, and throwing caution to the winds, I charged through the brush for a clean shot. When we reached the edge of the clearing, I carefully circled to get downwind of the beast. My cardinal rule of the jungle is always get downwind to bag the game. I think this is why the natives refer to me affectionately as Big Bwana Downwind Bag Game, or as they put it in their native jargon, Big Bwana Windbag. Now I was in position. I raised the gun to my shoulder and took careful aim, confident that few men in the world could handle the heavy elephant gun with my skill and precision. I squeezed the trigger, and the jungle echoed with the roar of the gun. These elephant guns are apt to have a bit of recoil. And then, heedless of danger, I charged through the underbrush in search of our prey. We found it. It was indeed a ferocious-looking beast, but apparently not the monster we were searching for. And so we struck out again, deeper into the jungle. Fortunately, due to my superb physical condition, I scarcely felt the weight of the heavy packs. We pushed on mile after mile under the blazing tropical sun, trying to find some trace of the monster. I was beginning to get discouraged, because being an inexperienced hunter, I knew instinctively the beast was nowhere in the area. And to make matters worse, Professor Wembley began to get nervous and imagined he saw things in the jungle. We continued the search, pushing ever deeper into the jungle. And according to the maps, we were now in the country inhabited by the dreaded Waziri tribesmen, the most savage and ferocious cannibals on the Dark Continent. I was continually on the alert, watching for anything unusual along the trail. Fortunately, however, I saw nothing, not a sign to indicate that any of those fearsome natives were near. When we reached a bit of high ground, I decided to climb another tree and have a look around. For a moment I thought I caught a glimpse of a man in the distance, but the tree was rather weak and I came down quickly. And then suddenly it happened. About half a mile further along the trail, we suddenly came face to face with a giant of a man, clad only in a leopard skin and holding a wicked-looking spear. A sight that would have struck terror to the heart of a lesser man than myself. Fortunately, I was able to take command of the situation at once. Being familiar with several of the native dialects, I struck up a conversation and convinced him that we were friends and meant him no harm. And it worked. His menacing attitude changed, and he seemed genuinely glad to see us. In fact, he seemed to take a particular liking to me, and expressed a desire to have me for lunch. I accepted, of course, and thanked him for his courtesy. The hospitality of this primitive man amazed me. Before I knew it, he had prepared a steaming bath for me so I could get cleaned up before lunch. This I enjoyed thoroughly, even though the tub was a bit small. He performed some quaint native ritual which consisted of cutting up various vegetables and herbs in the bath water. But the professor spoiled the whole ceremony. He got into a lengthy and boring argument with the native about something, and then I saw him give the man a considerable sum of money, which I thought was rather tacky. I believe in being fair with the minorities, but one must draw the line somewhere. The native then told me to get out of the tub, and I dressed, and he seemed to have forgotten all about lunch. I never did get anything to eat. We decided to push on, but Professor Wembley and I couldn't agree on which way to go. For some reason which I couldn't understand, the professor seemed to be getting very irritable. Then the native joined in and asked us which route we had taken coming into the interior. When I told him, he roared with laughter. He pointed to a little hill behind us and said he would show us the right way to go. He led us to the top of the hill, and there below us, to my surprise, was a well-beaten path running directly through the heart of the jungle. The professor became very difficult. He insisted we return to civilization on this smooth, easy trail, but I wouldn't give in. I wanted to have another look for our elusive monster on the way back. So we said goodbye to our native friend and set out once more under a burning tropical sun, pushing our way through the jungle, the professor, as usual, bringing up the rear. I'm convinced now that there never was any monster. The legend was a complete myth. In spite of my most careful and expert observation, I never saw a thing. The professor would occasionally babble about seeing things, but I think at this point he was a bit delirious. I don't know whether it was due to his advanced age or to my remarkable stamina and great strength, but Professor Wembley seemed to tire much more quickly than I. As we pressed forward on the final lap of our journey home, I thought for a while we might not make it. We finally reached the river and began the back-breaking task of paddling all the way downstream. But at last we swung around a bend, and there before us was the same sandy little beach from which we had started, with the same enthusiastic crowd lining the riverbank to welcome us home. And so as the sun sank low behind the dark and sinister tangle of the jungle, our adventure ended. At least I thought it had ended, but no sooner had we disembarked and set our feet on friendly soil once again than an amazing thing happened, a thing which to this day I don't understand. Professor Wembley grabbed the elephant gun and began pumping shots at me. This was the thanks I got for allowing him to accompany me and learn the secrets of jungle travel from an expert. And there is another bit of irony which still irks me. It was I who planned this safari. I led the expedition all the way. Although we met with the tremendous hardships, it was because of my ingenuity that I found the traveling quite comfortable. And yet it was not I who got the trophy. The only trophy back, and I understand that it hangs over the mantel in his living room to this day.